Psalm 27, verses 1 through 3 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is my defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? When the evildoers camp around me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumble and fall. Though a host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war arises against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident." Well, if you're reading through this 6-month reading plan of the book of Psalms, today's reading is Psalm 27, and I encourage you to read that psalm. Well, some days it just seems like you should have stayed in bed. Everything you do or everything that's done to you seems to have negative connotations or consequences. I know that I've had such days like that, and I'm going to assume that most of you have as well. But verses 1 through 3 reminds us that God is in charge. David is very clear that the Lord is his defense. He is equally as clear as his enemies will be defeated. And finally, his heart will not fear, and he will be confident even though the world may be falling apart around him. I had an experience like this about 40 years ago. My wife, Tony, and I had just gotten out of the Army, and I was about to begin school with the ultimate goal of going back into the Army as a chaplain. But I was experiencing some physical difficulties, and ultimately I was diagnosed as having multiple sclerosis. That completely pulled the rug out of my plans and our plans. We no longer could go back in the Army. Everything around me had fallen apart. All of our plans, all of our hopes, all of our dreams, really. Now, in that next 40 years, I received my bachelor's and master's degree in Bible and theology. I regularly taught Sunday school and other classes. I had a successful business venture as well as some unsuccessful ones. God allowed us to have 4 children, and while they've gone different paths, they all have a relationship with Christ, and we now have 10 and a half grandchildren. So, as much as my world was shaken 40 years ago, I didn't realize that God was just planning a delay in my chaplaincy. Last April, I received an appointment to be a chaplain in the Civil Air Patrol. Now, that's the United States Air Force's auxiliary. And the really interesting part of this appointment is that I can actually go onto an Air Force base and be a temporary replacement for a chaplain who is on active duty but needs to be gone somewhere. God worked out the details. It just took 40 years. We need to be confident that God will direct our paths in a way that we are both comforted and our desires will be met. It might take 40 years, but during that time, we can be confident that God is in charge. And if you would like a PDF copy of this entire reading plan, please send an email to phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.